There's a desk somewhere in your life that tells the truth about you. Not the words you post, not the plans you make. The desk. The half-finished project, the unopened notebook, the cold cup of coffee you swore you'd drink after just one more break. That's where your story keeps pausing. You keep starting new things, hoping this one will be different. But beginnings are addictive. They don't ask for endurance. They only ask for excitement. Every unfinished thing you leave behind doesn't disappear. It stays, quietly owning a small part of your confidence. And when you move on to the next idea, you're not starting fresh. You're starting weaker. Focus isn't about intensity. It's about survival. Because every time you split your attention, you drain the power that makes you, you. Not all at once. Just drop by drop. The truth is, most people don't fail because they can't start. They fail because they never stay. Because staying is uncomfortable. Staying means fighting boredom, distraction, doubt, fatigue. The small, invisible things that eat giants alive. You've built an identity around movement. Constant stimulation. Endless options. And it's killing your edge. You used to finish things. Now you just chase the feeling of progress, without paying the price of completion. But the mind that finishes, that mind is dangerous. Because once you learn to focus, you stop needing permission. You stop chasing shortcuts. You stop negotiating with yourself. Look at what's on your desk. Every half-done idea is waiting for proof that you can still finish. You don't need motivation. You need to remember what it feels like to go all the way through. Because the truth is, you're not overwhelmed. You're undisciplined. And the only cure for that is focus. Ruthless. Singular. Uncompromising. So today, before you start anything new, go back. Finish what's staring at you. The notes. The project. The promise. Because if you can't finish what's in front of you, you'll never handle what's waiting ahead. This is focus like it's survival. A manual for the ones who've had enough of almost. For the ones who can start anything. But I didn't finish anything. Chapter 1. The Noise That Drains You. You wake up, and before your feet even touch the ground, your attention is already gone. It's being pulled, stretched, claimed by everything that doesn't matter. The world is loud. But the real noise isn't around you. It's inside you. You wake up already tired. Not because you didn't sleep, but because your mind never stopped working. It scrolls, it switches, it reacts. Even at rest, you're in motion. The world has taught you to live half open. One tab here, one thought there. One unfinished task bleeding into another. And somewhere between all that noise, you've mistaken stimulation for strength. Every ping pulls you closer to emptiness. Every glance steals seconds you'll never feel leaving. You keep calling it keeping up, but really, it's you falling behind. You're drowning in small decisions. Reply, scroll, refresh, check. Tiny movements that look like living but don't build anything real. The human mind wasn't built for this many windows open. Every notification is a knock on the door of your focus. And you answer every time. There's a cost to constant reaction. You pay it in fragments. Not money, but presence. Each glance, each click, a withdrawal from your ability to go deep. You tell yourself you'll return later, that you'll finish when you have more time, more energy, more peace. But that day never comes. Because energy doesn't appear, it's reclaimed. Look around your desk. Half-done plans. Open notebooks filled with promising beginnings. You're surrounded by proof that excitement isn't enough. The noise doesn't just distract you. It rewires you. It teaches your brain to crave the new over the necessary. To choose interesting over important. Distraction feels harmless because it never announces the damage. It drains quietly. Like a leak you don't hear until the room is flooded. You think you're choosing a variety. You're choosing weakness. Because nothing powerful is ever built by a scattered mind. The body that trains half-heartedly never hardens. The craft that's touched once in a while never matures. And the mind that keeps switching lanes never arrives. You've mistaken motion for meaning. And every time you start without finishing, you make quitting easier to repeat. Until one day, distraction doesn't need to tempt you. It owns you. That's the drag you feel every morning. That quiet pull of fatigue before the day even starts. It isn't laziness. It's depletion. The exhaustion of 1,000 half-open doors you never had the discipline to close. And the worst part, you've learned to call that exhaustion normal. But normal is what's killing your edge. The quiet murder of potential that happens when your attention belongs to everything except the thing that matters most. You can't outwork noise. You have to outlast it. Focus dies quietly. Not in explosions, but in interruptions. One message. One glance. One tiny crack in the wall of concentration that never gets sealed. The mind was built to complete cycles. Every unfinished thought leaves an open loop demanding attention. When you stack enough loops, you stop thinking. You juggle. The average day isn't busy, it's fragmented. You don't carry one heavy weight. You carry 1,000 pebbles. None alone would break you, but together they turn motion into fatigue. That's the first mechanic of drain, accumulation. Not the pressure of too much, but the scatter of too little, repeated endlessly. The second is switching. Every time you shift attention, your brain resets its position like a craftsman forced to drop his tool and pick up another. It takes seconds, but those seconds compound into hours. And those hours become regret. You call it multitasking because the world taught you to worship speed. But speed without continuity is motion sickness. The faster you change focus, the less of yourself remains in any one thing. There's a third mechanic. The quiet killer. False urgency. You've been trained to mistake immediacy for importance. So you live on alert. Everything feels like a fire. Nothing ever burns long enough to give light. That constant alert keeps your nervous system half ready, half tired. You can't focus because you never fully land anywhere. There's another layer. Emotional residue. Every unfinished task leaves behind a trace of guilt. You carry that residue like dust. Invisible, but heavy. It collects in corners of your mind until clarity feels impossible. That's why even rest doesn't feel like rest. You sit still, but you're crowded inside. If you want to understand focus, stop calling it a skill. It's hygiene. It's the discipline of keeping your inner environment clean. You shower your body every day. You rarely cleanse your attention. And that neglect shows not in your goals, but in your patience. Because patience is the body language of focus. You can't fake it. The restless hand, the darting eye, the compulsive glance at your phone, they tell you. You're addicted to escape. The moment work feels slow, you look for a new flame to chase. That's not boredom, that's fear of depth. The deep is where transformation happens, but it also exposes you. The surface is safe, busy, loud, flattering. Depth is quiet and merciless. You can't hide down there. You either grow or drown. Focus is the art of saying no with conviction. Not the polite kind. The kind that offends comfort. The kind that looks selfish but saves your soul. The moment you commit to one direction, you start losing everything that doesn't belong. That loss feels cruel at first, but it's purification disguised as discipline. You're supposed to feel friction. Focus without discomfort isn't focus, it's preference. Every master you admire bleeds for monotony. They repeat what others abandon. They stay through the dull parts until dull turns sharp. That's the hidden formula. Endurance disguised as simplicity. Most people never experience it because they flee the moment repetition arrives. The human brain rewards completion. Finishing releases peace because closure is survival to the mind. That's why people who never finish are always anxious. They're carrying open circuits that never rest. The cure isn't more time. It's fewer openings. One project. One promise. One direction until the end. Because every new beginning steals the momentum meant for completion. You think you're diversifying. You're actually dividing. Focus isn't about tunnel vision. It's about constructing walls around what matters. Walls don't imprison you, they protect the work from dilution. So you start by watching yourself. Notice the microleaks. The glance at your screen mid-sentence, the half-heard reply, the need to check who just messaged you. Each one costs you more than you imagine. The mind pays in energy. And energy, once spent on nonsense, doesn't return. You're not tired of work. You're tired of interruptions dressed as importance. When you finally decide to protect your attention, the world won't clap. It will resist. Because your distraction feeds the machine. But the focus is rebellion. It's how you reclaim autonomy in a world that profits from your divided mind. Every finished task becomes a quiet act of defiance. Every completed promise, a declaration that you choose substance over stimulation. That's the mechanic no one teaches. Attention equals ownership. Whatever holds your attention owns you. You can't master what you serve. So you start closing tabs. Not on your screen, in your mind. One by one, you reclaim the fragments. Until what's left is small, but whole. That's the focus. Not fire. Not rage. Just the discipline to stay. There's always a moment, somewhere between frustration and clarity, when you realize the problem was never time. It was attention. The day didn't steal your focus. You gave it away, piece by piece, to things that never earned it. And now, sitting here, you can finally see the cost. Not in money or opportunity, but in strength. The strength that leaks from every unfinished thing. This is where focus begins. Not with energy, but with elimination. With the courage to say no more. No more half done. No more. No more running from the weight of one thing until it crushes you from every direction. You don't need a new system. You need a vow. To finish what's in front of you, no matter how small, until completion becomes instinct. From this point on, the work isn't about doing more. It's about doing one thing right, without escape. That's how you rebuild power. That's how you earn peace. Because the mind that finishes, finally, rests in the still air after the decision, where noise ends and direction starts. Chapter 2: The Addiction to Movement. You tell yourself you're chasing progress. But deep down, you know you're running from stillness. Movement has become your medicine, and your poison. Every unfinished thing whispers, keep going somewhere else. Not forward, just away. You think you crave growth. What you really crave is the feeling of becoming, without the cost of staying. The addiction to movement hides behind noble words. Productive, driven, ambitious. But the truth underneath is simple. You're terrified of the silence that comes when there's nothing left to chase. You move because motion distracts you from self-confrontation. As long as you're busy, you never have to ask if it's working. Business becomes identity. If you stop, you might have to meet yourself. I understand that hunger. That needs to prove you're doing something. Because for a while, constant movement feels like control. It keeps the fear quiet. It gives the illusion of progress, a rhythm that drowns the doubt. But motion without direction always ends the same way, exhaustion without growth. You become a collector of half-finished journeys. Projects that died mid-stride. Relationships that faded once they required stillness. Dreams that never became decisions. You think you're diversifying, but you're fragmenting. Every time you move without purpose, you train your mind to value novelty over mastery. You start craving change more than progress. And that craving turns you into a wanderer, always searching, never arriving. That's the hidden cruelty of movement. It feeds on the thrill of beginnings. The brain rewards you with dopamine for starting, not for finishing. So you live high on the spark, and crash when the spark fades. Discipline feels dull because it lacks applause. But dull is where power hides. You've built a habit of escape, disguised as ambition. Whenever a task gets heavy, you pivot. You call it adjusting. It's quitting with better marketing. Every unfinished path leaves a bruise on your confidence. And those bruises stack until you stop trusting yourself to go all the way. So you start smaller, promise less, dream shorter. You convince yourself you're realistic. But it's just self-protection. Because finishing hurts. It means giving up every other option. And the addicted mind hates limitation. Here's the truth most won't admit. Movement is the last socially accepted form of avoidance. You can hide behind busyness forever, and no one will call you out. They'll admire you for it. They'll say, "You're doing so much." But they'll never ask, "Are you finishing anything?" The addiction to movement doesn't ruin lives dramatically. It erodes them quietly, through endless almosts. You always look busy enough to feel safe, but never still enough to change. If you truly want focus, you have to learn to disappoint distraction. You have to teach your nervous system that boredom isn't death. Sit in it. Let the itch of restlessness burn without scratching it. Because that itch is withdrawal. It's the noise inside begging for another hit of novelty. Stay. Don't move until movement becomes choice again, not compulsion. Let me name the mechanics of this addiction. Novelty, validation, and the myth of linear growth. Novelty, because it lifts you out of discomfort. Validation, because it answers the question you're afraid to ask yourself. And linear growth, because it lets you believe that motion equals momentum. All three are lies that feel like progress but act like sedation. One of the first acts of real focus is refusal. Saying no to the attractive, the shiny, the possible. Saying yes to the small, the monotonous, the necessary. It will not feel glamorous. It will feel mean. Your friends will congratulate your bravery when you begin, not when you grind. You will get lonely. That loneliness isn't punishment, it's proof. Proof that you're doing something that matters enough to isolate you from convenience. I remember a man who built his entire life on motion. Degrees. Side projects. Constant novelty. But he never finished the one thing that could have freed him. One night he stopped. Closed every door except one. He wrote through the boredom, through the doubt, through the silence. And when he finally finished, he didn't just complete a project. He completed a version of himself. Finishing is how you rebuild power. Completion is how confidence returns. The world trains you to crave the high of starting. You must retrain yourself to crave the peace of finishing. That's where the real transformation begins. You don't have to quit everything that keeps you distracted. You just have to stop giving it your best hours. Give your first strength to what matters most. Everything else can survive on leftovers. Because what you give your focus to first defines the rest of your day. What you touch first grows. What you delay decays. The addiction to movement ends the moment you stop chasing the feeling of progress and start chasing the proof of it. Proof is quiet. It doesn't sparkle, it accumulates. It's the weight of small completions stacking until confidence returns. So finish one thing today. Not 5. 1. All the way through. Let the mind remember what completion feels like. Because once it does, it will crave that peace more than the thrill of motion. You'll know you're healing when you stop needing constant proof that you're moving, and start needing proof that you're changing. That's how addiction ends, not by stopping motion, but by making it mean something again. Focus is like survival. Because it is. Somewhere inside that stillness, you'll meet the hardest battle yet. Not the world. Not a distraction. but your own mind's refusal to stay. And that is where the real work begins. Chapter 3: The Mind That Can't Stay. The room is quiet, but inside your head, the world is still spinning. Thoughts collide like traffic, each demanding right of way. You've stopped moving on the outside, but the inside hasn't learned the difference. The body can sit, the mind still runs laps. You call it overthinking, but it's not thought. It's escape disguised as analysis. The mind that can't stay keeps building stories to avoid silence. The modern mind isn't tired because of labor. It's tiring from being pulled in every direction except forward. You wake up in fragments, half in yesterday, half in tomorrow. You chase stimulation because the present feels too still. But stillness isn't the enemy, it's the mirror. That's why you avoid it. Because the mirror doesn't flatter. It shows you how scattered you've become. How much of your identity depends on motion. Focus begins when the mind stops negotiating with distraction. Every thought that tempts you away is a test of obedience. The question is never, can you think? It's, can you stay with one thought long enough to finish it? The mind that can't stay is always half-built. Every idea collapses under the weight of impatience. You start sentences you never end. You plan lives you never live. It's not a lack of intelligence. It's a lack of training. Attention is a muscle, and yours has been sprinting so long it forgot how to stand still. You keep feeding that muscle novelty instead of resistance. New apps. New projects. New philosophies. You call it curiosity. It's avoidance with better branding. The truth is simple, you don't trust stillness. Because stillness doesn't applaud. It just reveals. And revelation hurts. There are two kinds of minds. The one that hunts distraction, and the one that hunts depth. The first collects. The second commits. You can't be both. Depth demands sacrifice. The surrender of constant stimulation. Every time you resist the urge to switch, you strengthen control. Every time you give in, you train chaos. The mind you feed becomes the life you live. Listen to that ticking. Each second is neutral. It only becomes lost when you spend it on noise. Most people lose not because they run out of time, but because they run out of attention. You don't need more hours. You need more ownership of the ones you already have. The mind that can't stay will search for purpose in everything except presence. But purpose only exists where you are, not where you might go next. So you train yourself to return. Over and over. To the line you were writing. To the task you started. To the breath you forgot to take. Returning is the real practice. Focus isn't staying perfectly still. It's coming back every time you drift. That's discipline. Not the absence of distraction, but the decision to return faster. Every return strengthens the path. Every return reclaims authority over your own mind. Eventually, you stop running. You stop chasing. You stop checking who's watching. And what's left is the rarest form of power, self-direction. You realize the mind isn't an enemy to control. It's an instrument to tune. The noise outside becomes rhythmical. The thoughts inside become order. And for the first time in a long time, you're not fighting to focus. You're choosing to. That's when mastery begins. When staying becomes easier than running. The mind that can't stay was never broken. It was just untrained. But training starts now. In this breath, this task, this moment. Stay. And everything you've been chasing will find you. You'll know you're growing when silence stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like home. Because that's what focus really is. Returning home, inside your own mind. The builders, the creators, the finishers, they all had one thing in common. They stayed. And so will you. But even as the mind learns to stay, another challenge begins. The world will not respect your stillness. It will pull at you, through screens, conversations, endless requests. Every new thing will ask for a piece of you. Every demand will promise it's small. Until you realize, your focus is being sold by inches. And that's the hidden cost of living divided. Chapter 4. The Price of Split Attention. You feel tired, but not from effort. It's a strange fatigue, a weight that sits behind the eyes. The kind that doesn't come from doing too much, but from doing too many things halfway. You call it burnout. It's actually fragmentation. Every unfinished thing you touch, every half-checked message, half-formed thought, is a leak. You think focus is about productivity. It's not. It's about possession. Whatever owns your attention, owns you. Attention is the purest currency you have. Time only matters when it's invested. And yet you spend it like loose change. On everything, everyone, everywhere. You've forgotten that divided focus multiplies cost. Every time you switch, you pay a tax. Not in minutes. In presence. Split attention is emotional debt. The unfinished email, the conversation left hanging, the project paused mid-build. Each one sends a quiet invoice to your mind. You don't see the numbers, but you feel them. They appear as restlessness, guilt, and that constant hum of something's missing. You keep wondering why peace never lasts. It's because your peace is still paying for everything you started and never finished. The modern mind doesn't collapse from overload, it bleeds from leaks. 100 tiny openings where focus escapes unnoticed. Checking messages while you listen. Thinking of tomorrow while you work. Living everywhere except here. You've mistaken being available for being valuable. So you trade depth for reach. But the wider you spread your focus, the thinner you become. Split attention doesn't just dilute effort. It erodes identity. When everything matters a little, nothing defines you. Ask yourself, who are you when you're not reacting? Do you even remember? Or have you become a mirror for whatever demands you most loudly today? You can't build a legacy in fragments. Every great life is a single line drawn long enough to mean something. You've been drawing dots, hoping they'll connect themselves. Focus is integrity. Not moral integrity, mental. The strength to keep your energy in alignment with your intention. Every time you split your focus, you split your character. You say one thing, but your attention proves another. That inconsistency eats confidence alive. You can't trust yourself to finish what your mind keeps abandoning. That's why you hesitate even when you finally choose a path. you don't believe you'll stay. So tonight, audit yourself. Not your finances, your focus. List what currently owns you, the apps, the arguments, the half-promises. Each one a thread pulling you away from strength. Then start cutting, one by one. Let what doesn't deserve your energy die. Because when you remove what's stealing from you, what's left finally starts paying back. The cost of divided focus is invisible until the moment it breaks you. You wake up one day and realize you've built nothing solid, just 100 partial attempts. That's when regret arrives, quiet, merciless. Regret doesn't shout. It whispers, "You had the power, but you never stayed long enough to see it." The cure is not more effort. It's alignment. Every decision must now pass one question: does this keep me whole? If it divides you, cut it. If it drains you faster than it builds you, leave it. If it tempts you to do everything, remember you were built to do one thing well. When you focus on one thing completely, you stop living on interest and start living on ownership. You own your hours, your craft, your clarity. And nothing owns you. That's the reward for paying the price. Wholeness. But focus isn't static. Once you gather it, the next test begins, keeping it alive. Because focus without conviction still fades. Focus is the door. Obsession is what walks through it. Because interest stops when it's tired. Obsession keeps building when the world stops watching. And that is where mastery begins. You've paid the price for focus. Now you'll pay the price for depth. Every builder reaches this threshold, where discipline meets desire, where work becomes identity. What begins as focus becomes flame. And that flame, if tended long enough, turns into something the shallow can't understand. It turns into obsession. Focus built the foundation, but obsession builds the structure. This is where patience stops being gentle and starts becoming fire. Welcome to the Forge. Chapter 5: Obsession over interest. Interest is soft. It comes and goes like the weather. Obsession is different. It's not something you feel. It's something that owns you. Everyone starts with interest. Interest is free. It costs nothing to care a little. But obsession demands payment. It will take your comfort, your ease, your time. It will burn what doesn't belong to your purpose. And if you let it, it will rebuild you into something unrecognizable. You were never meant to live a life fueled by interest. Interest gives you ideas. Obsession gives you mastery. Interest fades when results delay. Obsession tightens its grip when results hide. That's the difference between those who talk and those who build. The talker loves the spark. The builder worships the burn. Interest is what you post. Obsession is what you repeat when no one's clapping. You've been told balance is everything. But balance is a luxury for the unfocused. The ones who move mountains never balance, they sacrifice. Obsession isn't unhealthy when it's aligned. It's holy. It's the proof that purpose has chosen you. When the work begins to work through you, not for you, that's not burnout. That's becoming. Interest is what you do when it's convenient. Obsession is who you are when it's inconvenient. Interest counts the hours. Obsession forgets time exists. The reason most people never master anything is simple. They leave too soon. The moment the work stops exciting them, they start negotiating their exit. They call it pivoting. But it's quitting, dressed up as strategy. True obsession feels like captivity, but it's freedom. Because once you give yourself completely, you stop bargaining with effort. There's a weight that comes with doing one thing relentlessly. It isolates you. It exposes you. It asks if you're willing to be misunderstood. Most aren't. They crave recognition more than results. But those who endure the misunderstanding become undeniable. The world eventually kneels to the work it once ignored. That's what obsession buys you. Not applause, but authority. You can't half-love your purpose. Half-love produces half-results. Full love costs you almost everything, but it returns peace no one can take. You can tell who's interested and who's obsessed by how they treat boredom. Interest complains. Obsession sharpens its tools. When you're obsessed, the quiet repetition becomes prayer. The details become devoted. The work becomes identity. I know what it's like to lose yourself in something. To forget what day it is. To look up and realize hours vanished. But your soul feels fed. That's not madness. That's alignment. People will call you intense. They'll say you're overdoing it. But that's what people say when they've never given themselves fully to anything. Let them talk. You're not here to be balanced. You're here to be effective. The fire they call obsession is what keeps your vision alive when logic fails. Without it, dreams decay into hobbies. Obsession isn't about excess. It's about ownership. You've finally chosen something to belong to completely. That's rare. That's sacred. There's a story about a craftsman. He built violins alone for 40 years. No brand. No noise. No shortcuts. Each one took months, carved, tuned, tested until it sang. They laughed at him for being slow. But decades later, his name outlived theirs. Because obsession, real obsession, outlasts time. That's the secret most never learn. Obsession isn't speed, it's depth. The mind that's obsessed stops asking how long it will take. It just asks, how far can I go? Every repetition becomes meditation. Every struggle becomes sculpture. Until one day you look back and realize, the work didn't just shape the world. It shaped you. Interest follows convenience. Obsession follows commitment. One fades when life shifts. The other survives earthquakes. There will come a day when what you love feels heavy. That's how you'll know it's real. Because only what matters deeply has the power to test you completely. Stay through that test. Stay until the fire burns clean. That's where you meet yourself. Past interest, past excitement, past comfort. Obsession is how you say thank you for the gift. The gift of purpose. The gift of potential. Don't waste it trying to look balanced. Be consumed. Just make sure the fire builds, not burns. Because obsession, when pure, doesn't destroy. It refines. Tomorrow's world belongs to those still working after everyone else gets comfortable. Be one of them. That's the creed. Interest ends. Obsession endures. You've learned to focus. You've learned to stay. Now you must learn to repeat, long after passion fades. Because mastery isn't built for exciting moments. It's built in the dull ones. The ones that feel endless, invisible, boring. But that's the test of greatness. When boredom stops being the enemy and becomes the evidence. Welcome to the next season. The one that separates the dreamers from the doers. The one that makes you repeat until repetition turns into revelation. Every master you admire was forged here. In the work no one praises. In the practice no one sees. This is where obsession turns into discipline. Where repetition becomes the proof of devotion. Chapter 6. The Discipline of Boring Work. Every builder reaches this stage. When the excitement is gone. When the work no longer rewards you with feeling. Only progress invisible to the eye. This is where greatness hides. Not in the rush, not in the reveal, but in the monotony that breaks the impatient. Everyone loves the spark. Few respect the flame that stays. Because the flame that stays burns slow. This is the season no one films. The hours are so quiet even your own ambition feels muted. You start to wonder if the silence means failure. It doesn't. It means the work has finally reached depth. The discipline of boring work isn't about endurance. It's about faith. The kind that keeps showing up when nothing claps back. You used to work for emotion. Now you work for evolution. The surface rewards are gone, the likes, the rush, the novelty. What's left is the quiet test of integrity. Will you keep going when the world stops reacting? Because this is where most quit. Not out of weakness, but misunderstanding. They confuse unseen with unnecessary. Every great life has this chapter, the invisible grind. The season of boring repetitions that build invisible muscle. The days where nothing happens, but everything forms. Boredom isn't a signal to stop. It's the sign you're close to mastery. Because only those who've seen the surface 1,000 times begin to understand what's beneath it. Excellence is nothing more than devotion disguised as discipline. If you want to know who will last, watch how they handle the dull. The moment the applause fades, do they fade too? Or do they keep hammering the same nail until it bends the world? That's what separates interest from identity. When the work stops entertaining you, does it still define you? Most will chase stimulation. The few will choose repetition. And repetition will choose them back. You can't outthink boring work. You have to outlast it. The discipline that outlasts motivation is the true form of focus. It's not exciting, but it's undefeated. Because while others search for hacks, you'll be here, stacking invisible progress. No shortcut can replace hours. No trick can replace time. Boring work builds unbreakable men. Boring is the price of becoming exceptional. It's the toll between being talented and being trusted. You pay it in quiet, daily installments of discipline. The world will never see it, but it will always feel it in your results. The hardest part isn't doing the work. It's staying with the work when it stops giving back. You'll be tempted to switch paths, because change feels like progress. But real progress is invisible for a long time. Keep your hands dirty. Keep your head down. Keep your purpose quiet. Because the louder you get, the less you grow. The discipline of boring work is what separates talent from transformation. Talent works when it's inspired. Discipline works when it's exhausted. You won't always feel ready. You just need to feel responsible. Responsibility builds rhythm. And rhythm becomes consistency. Consistency, the quiet language of excellence. You've spent too much of your life chasing momentum. This is where you build endurance. Endurance doesn't run, it roots. It says, "This is where I stand. This is where I build." When the world moves on, endurance digs deeper. You will doubt yourself. You will question if this silence means stagnation. It doesn't. It means the foundation is settling. Let the work get heavy. Weight is what makes it real. You don't need to be seen every day. You just need to be building every day. Because what's invisible now will be undeniable later. That's the discipline of boring work. No fireworks. No applause. Just quiet, consistent war. The kind fought by those who'd rather build a legacy than chase a life. When the noise dies and the trends fade, the disciplined are still standing. You've been here before. The same desk. The same rhythm. The same work. Repetition, once sacred, now feels like weight. The discipline that once steadied you begins to blur into monotony. You start wondering if consistency is courage, or just comfort in disguise. The line between staying and settling things until it cuts. That's when the whisper comes. That quiet, convincing voice that says, "You've done enough." You haven't. But it sounds merciful enough to make you pause. Every builder meets this silence. The point where progress hides behind fatigue. And this is where most stories end. Not because they failed, but because quitting felt safer than continuing unseen. In that dangerous calm between endurance and escape, where the mind whispers stop and the soul dares you to stay. Chapter 7. When quitting feels safer. There comes a point in every pursuit where quitting starts to sound like healing. When stopping feels like relief, not failure. That's how fatigue deceives you. You tell yourself you're resting. But deep down, you know you're running. Not from work, but from the weight. It's strange, isn't it? How something that once gave you life now feels like it's taking it. That's not a weakness. That's transformation demanding another layer of you. Quitting whispering in reason. It says, "You've done enough. No one's even watching. You deserve a break." And for a moment, it sounds like mercy. But mercy, when it comes too early, becomes theft. You steal from the future you were building. You steal from the version of you that needed this pain to grow. Every builder hits this wall. The wall that separates effort from endurance. It's not built of failure. It's built of fatigue, loneliness, and silence. The wall doesn't ask if you're strong. It asks if you still believe. If you still trust that the invisible work is becoming something, even when the results aren't here yet. Most don't. They start bargaining with their purpose. They call it a pivot. They call it alignment. But really, it's surrender in disguise. You don't need to quit the path. You need to quit the fantasy of ease. You need to stop waiting for a version of the work that doesn't hurt. There isn't one. The pain doesn't go away. You just learn to work inside it. You stop asking, "When will this get lighter?" and start asking, "How much heavier can I carry?" The day quitting feels safest is the day breakthrough hides behind it. That's how this journey works. The darkest point comes right before the shift. But the mind won't tell you that. It just tells you you're tired. And sometimes you are. But tired doesn't mean done. Tired just means you've finally stopped running on emotion. Now the real work begins. I know what it feels like to wake up and not recognize your own fire. To stare at the same task that once inspired you and feel nothing. That emptiness isn't the end. It's the quiet before your next evolution. You're being rebuilt. Not in glory, in grit. Every time you choose to stay when it would be easier to leave, you're teaching your soul what commitment means. Not commitment to success. Commitment to becoming. The truth is, quitting feels safer because it removes responsibility. The moment you stop trying, you also stop failing. And the ego loves that kind of safety. But peace without purpose is just numbness. Don't mistake quiet for healing if it came from running. You can rest, but don't retreat. You can pause, but don't disappear. Because consistency doesn't mean constant motion, it means constant return. The strongest people don't always move forward. Sometimes they just refuse to go backward. The discipline you built in silence is stronger than the doubt you feel right now. Don't let exhaustion rewrite your identity. You've come too far to confuse tired with finished. This chapter won't end in fire, it ends in faith. Faith that the boring days and the brutal nights are leading somewhere. Faith that when everything in you wants to stop, you won't. You'll rest. You'll breathe. And you'll rise again. Because quitting only feels safer until you remember what's at risk. Your purpose. Your proof. Your peace. And none of that is worth losing just to feel lighter for a moment. You're not finished. You're just rebuilding your strength. There's always that moment, right after you break again. The silence that follows quitting. It doesn't roar. It whispers. You sit there, surrounded by half-built things. Half-lived versions of yourself. And for the first time, you don't rush to start over. You just breathe. And in that breath, you realize you're not tired of the work. You're tired of running from it. That's where it happens. The quiet click inside. The moment you decide to stay. Chapter 8. The moment you decide to stay. Every builder reaches a moment when they stop asking how long it will take. And start saying, as long as it takes. That's the moment you stop trying to escape your purpose. The moment you decide to stay. You've chased everything. Motivation. Momentum. Approval. But none of it lasted. Because nothing lasts until you commit to staying when the feelings fade. This is where transformation begins. Not in motion, but in maturity. The kind of maturity that understands peace doesn't come from running faster, but from stopping clean. Staying is not stagnation. It's a declaration. The moment you tell the noise, "You can keep spinning, I'm done moving." That's the difference between dreamers and builders. Dreamers chase inspiration. Builders chase completion. You've been everywhere but here. You've tried everything except focus. You've mastered motion. Now it's time to master staying. Staying doesn't mean still. It means steady. You stop measuring by excitement. You start measuring by execution. Every decision to stay rewires your identity. Every time you don't run, you teach your mind that discomfort isn't danger. That's the training. Not the hours, not the effort, the staying. Every master was once someone who stayed through the season that made everyone else leave. Staying feels hard because it removes your excuses. When you stop running, you run out of people to blame. You meet yourself, raw, unprotected, unperformed. That's where power begins, inside that confrontation. Not with noise, not with validation, just truth. And that truth sounds like this: if I leave now, I will start over again. If I stay, I will start building again. Staying doesn't reward you immediately. It builds interest in silence, compounding progress while the impatient keep restarting their lives. Every time you switch paths, you lose your compound growth. You reset your roots. But when you stay, roots deepen. The soil hardens. The storms come, but you don't move. There's a peace that only comes to those who no longer need new beginnings. The peace of being where you're meant to be, even if no one sees it. You stop chasing the new and start polishing the now. That's mastery. You realize you never needed a new path. You just needed a new level of patience. The moment you decide to stay, something sacred shifts. Time slows. The noise fades. The work begins to breathe again. You start seeing details you missed when you were rushing. You start hearing ideas that were drowned by speed. What used to feel heavy becomes holy. Staying doesn't guarantee success, but leaving guarantees regret. The work you keep returning to, even when it hurts, becomes sacred over time. It carries your fingerprints, your tears, your discipline. That's what makes it yours. That's what gives it soul. Every decision to stay is a decision to believe in something the world can't see yet. That belief is faith disguised as focus. You're not behind. You're just in the middle. The sacred part most people never reach. Don't run. Don't restart. Just refine. The moment you decide to stay, the mind stops searching. The heart stops begging. And the work starts speaking. You finally understand that mastery isn't about doing everything. It's about doing one thing, until it becomes impossible to ignore. You're not lost. You're planted. From here on, no more halfway. No more testing waters. No more. You've chosen your path. Now let your path choose you back. Stay until the work recognizes your name. You've made the decision to stay. But what they never tell you is how long staying feels before it starts to work. The first few days, it feels like peace. Then it starts to feel like pressure. Because silence, when stretched, becomes a test. You'll question everything. your pace, your purpose, your patience. The same walls that once made you feel safe will start to echo with doubt. This is where most people break. Not because they're weak, but because they thought stillness would feel like rest. It doesn't. It feels like waiting for light that doesn't come. But what if that darkness isn't absence, it's initiation? What if the tunnel is not a punishment, but a passage? This is where the surface ends and depth begins. Chapter 9: The Tunnel. When you go deep enough, the world disappears. It's not punishment. It's a passage. The tunnel doesn't take you away from life. It takes you through it. You've left the noise behind. No applause. No audience. Just you and the work. This is the phase no one can prepare you for. It's not glamorous. It's not quick. It's not even certain. The tunnel tests your belief more than your ability. Because down here, there's no feedback loop. You can't see how far you've come. You can't tell how far you have left. You just keep moving in faith. Every great life has a tunnel. A stretch of obscurity so dark you start wondering if you missed the exit. But the truth is, the tunnel is the exit. It's not a detour. It's the only way through. You can't skip it. You can only surrender to it. And the longer you resist, the longer you stay lost. People will try to drag you out. They'll say, "You've been quiet lately. You used to post more. Are you okay?" They won't understand that silence isn't suffering, it's focus. You're not hiding. You're building. The tunnel is sacred because it strips away performance. There's no pretending here. You either build or you break. In the tunnel, time stops rewarding speed. It starts rewarding endurance. You stop counting days. You start measuring depth. And somewhere between exhaustion and obsession, something changes. You stop thinking about outcomes. You start listening to the work itself. The tunnel has a sound, a hum low and steady. The rhythm of commitment echoing against silence. That's the sound of your old self dying quietly. The tunnel doesn't build you. It reveals what you were willing to keep when everything else was stripped away. The shallow break. The half-interested leave. The ones who stay, emerge changed. Because down here, no one claps. No one reminds you why you started. You either remember, or you forget. The tunnel doesn't beg you to finish. It just keeps asking, how bad do you want peace? There's beauty in being unseen. Because no one can interrupt what they can't find. Down here, you work without witnesses. You fail without commentary. You grow without applause. That's what makes the tunnel sacred. The world gets loud at the start, and silent when it matters most. The tunnel is lonely, but it's not empty. It's full of everything that matters. Every repetition you've hated. Every failure you've buried. Every lesson you ignored until pain made you listen. That's what the tunnel gives back. The mirror of who you actually are. You won't see progress here, only proof. Proof that you can stay long enough for depth to change you. That's the reward. Not success. Strength. When the tunnel finally opens, you won't be the same person who entered. You'll walk out slower, quieter, stronger, with a kind of peace that never leaves. That's the paradox. You thought you entered the tunnel to find success. You'll leave realizing you found yourself. Because once you've worked in the dark, the light stops seducing you. You don't need the world to see anymore. You've already seen yourself. Stay in the tunnel. Stay until you stop needing to escape it. Stay until the silence feels safe again. Because the moment you stop craving the light, the tunnel opens by itself. You've been here long enough to know what the dark teaches. That light doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who work while waiting. The tunnel wasn't a punishment. It was protection, a place where distraction couldn't follow you. And now, something inside you feels different. Lighter, narrower, focused. You don't want everything anymore. You just want what's yours. The noise outside still calls, but you're not listening. Because you've finally seen what most never do. That mastery isn't about more. It's about one thing done with everything you have. And that's where we will go next. Not deeper, but truer. Chapter 10. The Power of One Thing. There's a moment after the tunnel when life becomes clear again. The noise fades. The mind unclenches. And what's left is one thing. You used to believe success came from doing more. But now you know, it comes from doing less with greater devotion. You've tested the chaos. You've chased the options. You've worn yourself thin trying to be everything. And in the end, you found power in one thing. That's the paradox of mastery. The smaller your world becomes, the larger your impact grows. The mind loves variety. The soul loves depth. You were never built for fragments. You were built for focus. The power of one thing isn't about minimalism. It's about meaning. It's about choosing the one battle worthy of your life. Most people never find their one thing because they're afraid of losing everything else. But the truth is, you're already losing everything else every time you divide yourself. Every split in focus is a cut in power. And every cut leaves you weaker, quieter, smaller. You don't need 10 dreams. You need one mission. One thing to give your best hours to. One thing to master until it masters you. The power of one thing is commitment disguised as peace. When you finally stop chasing, the world stops resisting. It doesn't mean life gets easier. It means your energy stops leaking. You start seeing progress again. Slow, steady, invisible to everyone but undeniable to you. The one thing doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be yours. It can be a craft, a calling, a standard. It doesn't matter what the world calls it. Only what it costs you to honor it. Because the more you give to one thing, the more it gives back. You've seen what divided energy feels like. Noise, fatigue, frustration. This right here is the opposite. Simplicity, clarity, power. Focus isn't a restriction. It's liberation. Because now, everything that doesn't align doesn't matter. You stop apologizing for your focus. You stop defending your discipline. You stop explaining your peace. The ones who don't understand your silence will never understand your strength. And that's okay. You didn't choose this path to be understood. You chose it to be effective. The power of one thing is the death of distraction. It's the moment your life becomes a straight line instead of a circle. It's how you finally stop chasing potential and start collecting proof. Proof that simplicity was the secret all along. Proof that mastery was never complicated, only consistent. You don't need more time. You just need fewer targets. You don't need more goals. You just need one goal that deserves your whole heart. Everything else is noise. The power of one thing isn't about control, it's about peace. The peace that comes when your life finally points in one direction. The kind of peace you earn when nothing can pull you away again. You've arrived at focus, not as a skill, but as a way of life. And now, everything that matters will grow. You've learned the power of one thing. But knowing power isn't the same as proving it. Because focus isn't fulfilled until it finishes. And every builder, sooner or later, faces that final test. Not to start stronger. Not to go faster. But to stay long enough for the work to speak. This is where the story stops being about progress and starts being about permanence. You've built the strength to begin. Now you must become the kind of person who finishes. Chapter 11. Built to Finish. There's a kind of peace that only comes when something is done. Not abandoned. Not postponed. Finished. You've spent a lifetime starting, searching, restarting. But today, you finish. Finishing isn't about the task. It's about closing the gap between who you were and who you said you'd be. Every incomplete thing you ever carried, every half-built dream, every delayed decision, all of it ends here. You were never built to start fast. You were built to end strong. The mind that finishes is not the same mind that began. It's quieter. It's clearer. It's earned. Because finishing is not about energy, it's about endurance. And endurance is what's left when emotion runs out. The world remembers finishers. Not because they're perfect, but because they refuse to stop when it would have made sense to. Most people never finish anything. They live in fragments, always chasing the next beginning. But beginnings are easy. Endings are earned. The discipline to finish is the proof that the fire in you outlasted the weather around you. Every great work is just a series of finishes. One page. One day. One promise, kept. That's what separates those who tried from those who became. You are here because you refused to stop. Because you stayed when it hurt. Because you kept showing up when no one was watching. The truth is, finishing doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like quiet relief. A gentle exhale after a lifetime of holding your breath. No fireworks. No applause. Just stillness and peace. That's how you know it's real. Because real accomplishment doesn't scream. It rests. You've proven something now, not to the world, but to yourself. That you can finish what you start. That your word still means something. And when you trust yourself to finish, your fear of starting disappears. Because you know whatever begins in your hands, ends in your hands. Every finish leaves a mark. It writes your name into the work. It tells the world, I was here. I followed through. You'll never need to announce yourself again. Your completion will do it for you. You've outgrown motivation. You've outgrown applause. You've built something permanent inside yourself. You started chasing focus to control your life. You'll finish realizing you were building character. Focus gave you direction. Finishing gave you identity. Now you understand, it was never about getting everything done. It was about becoming someone who finishes anything. You've reached the end, not of the work, but of the version of you who used to doubt. The part that needed proof, permission, validation, gone. What's left is peace, quiet, completion, and that peace will follow you into every project, every decision, every silence. You are built to finish, because you've proven that staying power is stronger than starting energy. And that's the rarest kind of power. The kind that doesn't need to be seen, only lived. The noise ends here. What's left is proof. You've walked through distraction, through exhaustion, through the noise that tried to name you. And somewhere along the way, you stopped needing applause. You stopped chasing motion. You started finishing what no one saw you start. This is what it means to be built to finish. Not perfect. Not famous. Just whole. The world doesn't clap for this kind of strength. It can't see it. But you will. In the stillness of your own proof, you'll feel it. The quiet satisfaction of knowing you didn't quit this time. The noise taught you to rush. The silence taught you to stay. But finishing taught you to trust yourself again. Every chapter before this was a doorway. This one is the foundation. Because you can't call yourself focused until you've stayed long enough to complete. And now, you've stayed. Somewhere out there, another builder is still scattered. Still searching for the beginning of their focus. Still learning what you now know, that the finish line is quiet, but it's sacred. So before the silence closes, leave this behind. You don't have to be everywhere to matter. You just have to finish what you start. For some, this is the ending. For others, it's a reminder. But for you, this is the beginning of the next build. Because once you've learned to finish, you start to see everything differently. The noise quiets. The path clears. And the only voice that matters is your own. This is where our story pauses. Not because it's over, but because it's ready to begin again. For the one who's still scattered, this next silence is for you. For the one who's still scattered, you don't need to fix everything. You just need to finish one thing. You've spent so much of your life trying to hold it all together. Every plan, every path, every expectation. And it left you tired. Not because you failed, but because you cared about too many things at once. You thought focus meant control. But focus was never about holding on, it was about letting go. You don't need to be perfect to be peaceful. You just need to stop scattering yourself across things that don't matter. Half your strength has been spent trying to keep up with a life you never wanted. It's time to slow down. The truth is, focus was never a skill. It was survival. The quiet decision to stop leaking energy into every open loop. To stop chasing applause that costs your peace. to stop mistaking noise for purpose. You don't owe the world a constant version of yourself. You owe yourself the stillness to rebuild one. You're allowed to step back. You're allowed to start small. You're allowed to finish quietly. That's not failure. That's freedom. You've done enough proving. Now it's time for becoming. So if you're still scattered, if your hands shake when they hold still, don't hate the noise. It's just the sound of your power learning where to live. Focus isn't about doing less. It's about giving more to what deserves it. Start with one thing. Stay with one thing. Finish one thing. And you'll find that peace was never waiting at the end. It was waiting inside the work the whole time. You were built for this. Not to rush. Not to impress. But to finish. Because finishing isn't the end. It's the beginning of who you really are. And when the world gets loud again, come back here. To the desk. To the quiet. Sit with your purpose until it remembers your name. You don't need to chase focus anymore. You've become it. Because when you finally stop trying to control everything, what's meant for you has room to arrive. The noise ends here. What remains is peace. Quiet power. Cinematic truth. Emotional mastery. If this message spoke to you, share it. Subscribe. Keep listening. This is Beyond the Noise Studio.